You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on
Stand with Ambazonia. Empower ABC Amba TV. We are calling on Ambazonians around the world to unite and uplift ABC Amba TV, Ambazonian Broadcasting Corporation. In this critical time of war, ensuring the station's survival is more important than ever. But what does ABC Amba TV truly represent for Ambazonia?
At the heart of Ambazonia's war of independence, ABC Amba TV stands as a beacon. Years of recolonization, annexation, and French Cameroon's oppressive occupation of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia have led to our exclusion. Our identity was hidden, our history distorted, our sovereignty denied. Queen of England is aware that the British Southern Cameroons were never a colony under France.
Since its inception in 2018, ABC Amba TV has been our lifeline.
Months of diplomacy have failed to resolve the crisis as fear grows over an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Our work in the dark is our chance to tell our stories to the world, to give voice to the voiceless and broadcast the truth of our struggle.
We are serious about executing this revolution.
It has become a vital arm of our government in wartime, making diplomacy achievable and showcasing our untold stories.
ABC Amba, you guys know how important ABC is for this, our quest for international recognition.
Your donations can make a world of difference. Every bit of support helps keep our stories alive, our presence known, and our fight in the global conversation.
The moment they notice that we are no longer on air, they think that, oh, maybe La Republic has succeeded. This is about Amazonia. One thing we must always remember.
Where would we be without ABC Amba TV? Let's ensure we never have to find out.
A revolution is a temporary state of insanity to bring about sanity.
Mobilize, donate, stand with Ambazonia. Donate to ABC Amba TV.
Together, let's write the next chapter of our history.
It is better to light the candle than to curse the dark.
Support ABC Amba TV campaign. Ambazonia Independence, voice for the voiceless. Mobilize for change.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. Let me start by appreciating all who are watching this program today. I understand that we've not been on air for the past 2 weeks live due to circumstances beyond our control, but we thank the mighty God that we're here today. I want to start by raising my praise and appreciation to our ASA, Ambazonia State Army, for all they are doing to keep homeland free. I also want to appreciate every single Southern Cameroonian, Ambazonian, wherever you are, in the diaspora, as a refugee, in neighboring La Republic, for keeping the faith, for doing all you can to make sure that our end game is a free land that we all will live in together as brothers and sisters in pursuit of happiness, which is what every human being wants. Thank you again for joining The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. Today on this program, my guest is a permanent guest that has been here time and time again. He's not a stranger. He comes with a wealth of information, and it's always a privilege to welcome Dr. Fred Lobadi to The Horizon. Dr. Lobadi, I need you to take a moment and greet everyone, and we'll delve straight into the program. Is Dr. Fred around? I hope. There
Yeah.
you are.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was wondering what happened. I was not coming through. Can you hear me?
Clearly.
Okay, very good. I'm very, very happy one more time to be with you in this program, Mape. And we really want to bring information to educate our people, informing them about the unfortunate situation our country found themselves in when we were forced maneuvered to join La République du Cameroon, and what has happened to us until today. And we don't want them to be pessimistic. We want them to know that eventually things will end out well. But we just want to bring this information and update them and remind them of what truly was going on and what has happened to us till today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to start. I have this book that is titled Imperialistic Politics in Cameroon, Resistance and the Inception of the Restoration of the Statehood of Southern Cameroons. It's by Professor Carlson Anyangwe. I want to start this program today by reading a short paragraph, and then after that, we will look at a video clip that will get us into the program. Remember, today the topic is genocidal wars, how France has kept the Cameroons as colonies since independence. That's one of the topic. And the second topic has to do with who the leaders of La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroon are and will be in future, so that we know exactly where we are and where we are going to. So here I go. International human rights law ordains that the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. The evidence shows that Cameroon Republic, the former French Cameroon UN Trust territory that gained independence on January 1st, 1960, is in forcible occupation of the British Southern Cameroons, the former UN Trust territory under British administration. Firstly, there is no act of union between the two territories. Secondly, there is no international treaty by which the frontiers of the independent French Cameroon have been extended from what they were at the attainment of its independence on January 1960 to now include the territory of the Southern Cameroons. Thirdly, every day the people of the Southern Cameroons reject by word and conduct the colonial occupation of the territory by Cameroon Republic, and every day they demand the ending of that colonial occupation. Fourthly, there is no respite in Cameroon Republic's savage ill treatment of the people of the Southern Cameroons and its wanton plunder of the resources of their territory. Fifthly, it is patent, even to the casual observer, that the relationship between the Southern Cameroons and Cameroon Republic is that of a horse and rider. I end here for now. We will talk about what happened, the wars that have happened in both territory. And I want to introduce this topic today with a clip. It's a video in French that we hope to play the entirety of the video sometime on the horizon for people to just watch from beginning to end. But we will show a brief clip now so that Dr. Fred can start with the conversation. Thank you so much. And it's going to be in French, so pardon us, but I'm sure the doctor will translate for you.
Focus report, and this Friday we look into a dark yet little known chapter of France and Cameroon's common history. In the 1950s and 60s, the French army fought alongside Cameroonian government forces against members of the leftist UPC movement, which it labelled as rebels. Historians say that during this little-known war, tens of thousands of people were killed. France 24 talked to a crucial witness who saw massacres being committed. A report carried out in France and Cameroon by Nicolas Germain, with Marcela Moko, Zigoto Chaya, Melina Huet and Sylvain Rousseau.
In a remote village in southwest France, this former French soldier took part in a war that few people, even in France, have heard of. One which has been described as the beginning of France-Afrique, the murky relationship between Paris and its former African colonies. Bardet was sent to Cameroon between 1962 and 1964 in the western Bamileke region.
Comme les militaires menaçaient trop, nous avions organisé un camp pour garder la population. Les militaires ont surpris cette population-là et avec l'armée française, ils ont ouvert le feu. Ils ont décimé cette population et il y avait un seul survivant.
Les fusils, sauf qu'il peut. Et c'est comme ça que les corps tombaient. Je ne marchais pas encore comme maintenant. J'ai piétiné. Les cadavres comme ça. Les mitrailleuses, vous voyez même, ça coupait les ailes.
La France continue à nier officiellement. François Fillon est allé à Yaoundé en 2009 et a dit « Tout ce que vous racontez, ce sont de pures inventions ». Pourquoi est-ce qu'ils nient? Parce qu'ils en ont honte, parce que c'est pas très glorieux d'avoir fait une guerre à un parti qui était l'Union des populations du Cameroun, l'UPC, qui réclamait seulement l'indépendance, qui réclamait seulement la démocratie. Et c'est pour empêcher ça que la France a mené une guerre avec ses alliés camerounais de l'époque face à ce parti-là. Et il y a eu des atrocités, il y a eu des bombardements, il y a eu des tortures. Vous connaissez à peu près le bilan de cette guerre? C'est difficile à chiffrer, les estimations qu'on a tournent autour de 100 000 morts, mais ce sont des estimations qui viennent souvent de sources françaises, donc peut-être minimisées, et on peut penser qu'il y en a eu plus que ça. C'est assez difficile à dire. Nous, on ne s'est pas vraiment axé sur le bilan chiffré, on essaie de montrer les mécanismes qui ont conduit à cette guerre et qui ont conduit à la confiscation de l'indépendance.
Contrairement à ce que certains voudraient faire croire, la colonisation ne s'est pas déroulée comme l'entrée d'un couteau dans du beurre. Les Africains n'étaient pas des lâches. Nombreux sont ceux qui ont combattu avec courage contre la domination coloniale, souvent au prix de leur vie. Ces résistances ont donné naissance à de véritables guerres, et l'une des plus meurtrières en Afrique reste la guerre du Cameroun. Plus de 200 000 personnes ont péri, victimes des actes effroyables de l'armée coloniale française. Cette guerre, d'une importance capitale, devrait être connue de tous les Camerounais, et plus largement de tous les Africains. Pourtant, elle reste très peu documentée. On pourrait même dire qu'elle est sciemment placée sous le sceau du secret. Et c'est vraiment dommage car connaître son passé est essentiel pour comprendre son présent et mieux envisager son futur. Quand on regarde la relation actuelle entre le Cameroun et la France, il y a de quoi être troublé. On a l'impression qu'un crime de cette ampleur n'a jamais existé. Comme si plus de 200 000 personnes étaient mortes pour rien du tout. Cette guerre, appelée guerre du Cameroun, guerre d'indépendance ou encore guerre de l'UPC, a duré plus de 15 ans. Elle a opposé les nationalistes camerounais dirigés par l'UPC à l'armée coloniale française, puis au gouvernement post-indépendance soutenu par Paris. Dans cette vidéo, nous allons découvrir comment le gouvernement colonial français a injustement dissous un parti politique nationaliste, comment des Camerounais ont risqué leur vie en prenant les armes face à des forces bien supérieures. Et surtout, comment la France a méthodiquement éliminé les leaders de ce mouvement tout en bombardant des régions entières du Cameroun. Sans plus tarder, la guerre du Cameroun, c'est maintenant. Comme le Togo, le Cameroun a une histoire particulière marquée par 3 colonisations, allemande, française et britannique. Les Allemands arrivent après les Portugais, mais ce sont eux qui instaurent la première colonisation officielle. Celle-ci dure 32 ans, de 1884 à 1916, et provoque d'énormes dégâts. Les Baka, par exemple, sont régulièrement traqués et étudiés comme des...
Tout individu trouvé en dehors des camps est considéré comme rebelle et abattu sur le champ.
On rassemble les petits villages en gros villages que l'on peut contrôler. Et deuxièmement, on fait circuler de petites patrouilles pour courir après les petits groupes de Mniobé. Mniobé faisait régner la terreur. Et à partir de ce moment-là, j'ai décidé de lui faire la guerre et de l'éliminer.
À partir de ce moment-là?
Oui.
L'armée française mène alors de véritables opérations de guerre dans les régions Bassa et Bamileke. Des milliers de Camerounais sont rassemblés de force, mitraillés et bombardés depuis des hélicoptères. Les nationalistes et de milliers d'innocents subissent également des bombardements au napalm sur leur zone de repli.
Ce n'est pas seulement des rumeurs. Le napalm a été utilisé au Cameroun.
De même année, il est confronté à une nouvelle menace, le retour de Sendé Afana, un économiste et nationaliste, figure influente de l'UPC. Sendé Afana organise des insurrections dans la région de Melundu, exigeant une véritable indépendance pour le Cameroun, le retrait des bases militaires françaises, l'annulation des accords de coopération et la tenue d'élections présidentielles transparentes. Devenu gênant pour le régime, Sendé Afana est traqué par les forces armées camerounaises, accompagné de militaires français. Le 5 mars 1966, il est localisé et encerclé dans une forêt. Bien qu'il parvienne à s'échapper, il perd ses lunettes et ses sandales, ce qui compromet sa mobilité. Le 15 mars 1966, il est de nouveau pris en embuscade par une unité de l'armée camerounaise. Presque aveugle sans ses lunettes, Sendé Afana ne parvient pas à fuir comme ses compagnons. Capturé, il est exécuté et décapité. Sa tête est transportée par hélicoptère à Yaoundé afin que le président puisse regarder le mort dans les yeux. À l'exception d'Ernest Ouandjé, caché dans la forêt et traqué par l'armée camerounaise, plus personne n'ose contester l'autorité du président Amadou Ahidjo et du système France-Afrique imposé par la France au Cameroun. En 1970, unique candidat, Amadou Ahidjo est réélu avec 100% des voix. Dès le début de ce nouveau mandat, Ahidjo décide d'en finir définitivement avec les résistants de l'UPC. Le 19 août 1970, Ernest Ouandjé est arrêté dans le département du Mungo, précisément dans la localité de Mbanga. Il est transporté par hélicoptère jusqu'aux locaux de la tristement célèbre brigade mixte mobile de Konengi à Yaoundé. Ce lieu, connu pour ses salles de torture, est dirigé par le sinistre Jean Fauchivé, un homme de main du régime qui n'a de compte à rendre qu'au président de la République. En novembre 1970, les ambassades camerounaises à Paris et à Londres refusent des visas aux avocats étrangers souhaitant défendre Ouandjé et Monseigneur Ndokmo. Au Cameroun, Ouandjé rejette l'avocat commis d'office par l'État. Face au tribunal, il déclare « Il m'est impossible d'être jugé équitablement. Le gouvernement veut m'éliminer et ce procès est une mascarade. » Interrogé sur les faits qui lui sont reprochés, Ouandjé refuse de s'exprimer, qualifiant le procès de simple formalité visant à justifier son exécution. Peu avant Noël, Monseigneur Ndokmo demande la grâce présidentielle, mais Ouandjé refuse catégoriquement de signer un recours. Lorsqu'on lui présente le dossier à plusieurs reprises, il répond un jour à Ahidjo « Prenez vos responsabilités, moi je prends les miennes devant l'histoire. » Le 5 janvier 1971, Ernest Ouandjé est condamné à mort avec deux de ses camarades, Raphaël Fauting et Gabriel Tabeu. Le 11 janvier, Jacques Fauca atterrit au Cameroun et informe Ahidjo que la situation de Ouandjé doit être résolue avant la visite imminente du président français Georges Pompidou. Fauca conclut « Je pars à Libreville en attendant que cette affaire soit réglée. » Le 15 janvier 1971, la sentence est exécutée. Sur une place publique à Bafoussam, devant une foule rassemblée, Ernest Ouandjé, Raphaël Fauting et Gabriel Tabeu sont exécutés. La mort de Ouandjé marque la fin des oppositions sérieuses au régime néocolonial d'Ahidjo et scelle la disparition de l'UPC véritable.
Le régime d'Ahidjo était un régime d'une répression barbare et vraiment sanglante dans tout le Cameroun, pas seulement sur le plan de l'armée. Et ça s'étendait même dans des zones où il n'y avait pas de guerre. On arrêtait les gens, on les enfermait, on les tuait des façons les plus barbares.
Le nombre exact de victimes de cette guerre reste sujet à débat. Une chose est cependant certaine. Ce conflit mené par la France contre des hommes qui ne réclamaient que l'indépendance de leur pays a fait au moins 200 000 morts.
Les hommes, ils devaient les achever, et les femmes, ils les achevaient pas. Ils les laissaient mourir comme ça.
Max Bardet était accompagné d'un officier de l'armée française.
Attendez, ce que voulait voir cet officier qui était avec moi, c'était qu'il n'y ait surtout pas de comment dirais-je, de gens qui puissent aller raconter ça et qu'on puisse impliquer justement, comme il y avait encore quelques militaires français, qu'on puisse impliquer la France dans ces affaires-là. Moi, je serais à leur place, j'en voudrais, je serais Moune et j'en voudrais aux Français, enfin, j'en voudrais aux Français.
La guerre du Cameroun, bien qu'étouffée par la France et ses alliés, demeure un chapitre douloureux et significatif de l'histoire africaine. Elle illustre les sacrifices immenses consentis par ceux qui rêvaient d'indépendance et d'un avenir meilleur pour leur nation. Elle nous rappelle également la complexité des luttes post-coloniales, où les aspirations locales se heurtaient aux intérêts des grandes puissances. Aujourd'hui encore, le Cameroun porte les stigmates de ce conflit. Que cette histoire serve de leçon pour les générations actuelles et futures. La quête de liberté est un chemin ardu, mais elle reste une aspiration noble et universelle. Merci d'avoir suivi cette narration. Si cette histoire vous a intéressé, n'hésitez pas à partager vos réflexions en commentaire et à vous abonner pour découvrir d'autres récits sur l'histoire de l'Afrique.
Thank you so much for that short clip. Again, I think we're going to recommend that it's played in its entirety so that people can appreciate the content. We thank God for social media these days. These are things that happened several years ago. They would have gone unnoticed. People will not know about them without brave men and women coming to tell the stories. Doc, before you discuss this more detailedly, what was the prevailing situation in La République du Cameroun when the British Southern Cameroons was maneuvered to join them in 1961? Because when you talk about this, then we can get into the war discussion.
So basically, this video is explaining the war situation that was in La République du Cameroun. You know, it tells you clearly that the French launched this war in 1955, and it lasted till 1971 when the NS1G was executed in Bafoussam. And there was war raging all over La République du Cameroun against what they call terrorists, basically people who were asking for true independence and freedoms for La République du Cameroun. And remember, we got our independence in 1961. So we were being forced with a plebiscite to join La République du Cameroun that was at war. Nigeria at the time did not appear to be at war, but later on, Nigeria had the civil war in the late 60s to 70 that again was perpetrated by the French. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into that one right now. But basically, this war in La République du Cameroun was organized and carried out by the French. And this video is explaining how it came about, how the French were oppressing the true independent-minded Francophones and made sure that they were all eliminated and accomplished their final goal in 1971 when they killed NS1G in Bafoussam. Now, I can go more into that, but I would like to tell our people exactly who the French are. Remember, so a teacher cannot give you what they don't have. A teacher cannot teach you what he does not know. So we need to know exactly who these French people are. We know, for those who cared about history, that there was a French Revolution in 1789 when the French monarchy was eliminated. And since then, France has been politically unstable and gone through various stages of renewals called the French Republic. What happened was that there was an evolution in the French Republic that can be summarized as follows. After the French Revolution, they established a first republic. Remember, the monarchy was dethroned in 1789. And it was around 1793 that the king was guillotined with his wife. He was guillotined in January and his wife in September of that year. So the First Republic, after the monarchy was removed, was established from 1792 to 1804. For those who read European history, this is when Napoleon Bonaparte came to power and tried to stabilize the French government and became an emperor, as he called himself, and waged war all across Europe until he was destroyed and killed by the British, defeated by the British in the Battle of Waterloo in 1812. And then there was a second republic that was generated after Napoleon from 1848 to 1852, just a period of 4 years. They are very unstable. There was a third republic from 1870 to 1940. That is the one that lasted the longest, of 70 years. It is important for us to know that it was during this time that Charles de Gaulle was born in 1890 and he died in 1970. The reason I bring Charles de Gaulle is because he's the one who basically created this current fifth French Republic that is in power, and he did that in 1958. We should remember that La République got their independence in 1960, just 2 years before that. That's when Charles de Gaulle created the fifth French Republic. So after 1940, the Nazis took over France and controlled it until America liberated France. And so there was a fourth republic that was formed after the Second World War from 1946 to 1958, before Charles de Gaulle came to power. That's a quick summary here of the instability of the French system of government and what happened around the independence of La République du Cameroun and how they caused the wars in La République du Cameroun that we literally were forced to encounter when we were forced to join them.
Wow, thank you so much, Doc. So when this video that we saw, they called the Babeli case, they call the UPC leaders, they call them rebels, and they call us terrorists. So there are some similarities really in terms of how the war presented itself from 1955 to 1971 to what is currently happening for us that started in November 2017 and is ongoing. You see some similarities in terms of what they call you before they go to kill you. They were called rebels, we are called terrorists. And they come in and they burn down villages and they kill women, even including children. In those days, there was part of the video, they say how they will even cut the breast of women just to brutalize them, burn down villages. So some of that I see some of the parallels there. You want to comment on that a little bit before we go to the next point?
Correct. So it will take a little bit, but basically I told you the longest Third Republic of France was from 1870 to 1940. And that is when France was participated in the partitioning of Africa and colonies in 1883 or 1884 in Berlin, and they acquired their colonies. And France also had colonies in Southeast Asia, Vietnam in particular. And you notice that in 1940, that's around when the Second World War started, the Germans literally ran into Paris, took over the government, and Charles de Gaulle ran to London, where he was a military officer. He was communicating with the French by radio. But what happened is this. While they were in China, after the Second World War, the United States decided to support France to overcome the communist influence. That means they did not want the Russians to introduce communism in Southeast Asia. So they supported France to overcome and defeat the indigents of Vietnam that wanted true independence for themselves. And the French, unfortunately, failed woefully in that battle of Indochina. They were crushed, and America had to go there and rescue them. And what the French did there, they were fighting against indigents by pitting one group against the other and using spies among them. And this Pierre Mesmer that you heard, the guy who was speaking the older voice, he was actually in Vietnam at the time. And the French were crushed and humiliated, and they left Vietnam disgraced. And so they came now, their last time was in Africa, humiliated. And they tried to they practiced the tricks that they learned in Vietnam, in Algeria, as well as in Cameroon. And with Algeria, it's another long story. The French wanted to co-opt it as part of their territory, but it never succeeded, and that's why Algeria is an independent country. But they came and literally perfected their skills in Cameroon. Most of what they have done in Francophone Africa, particularly in central Francophone African countries, they experimented with Cameroon. Cameroon was like the laboratory. In Senegal and Ivory Coast, they also have their own history with the French. But what happened in Central Africa was predominantly practiced in Cameroon. And so when the French came with this Pierre Mesmer that you saw, he was now sent to Cameroon as the ruler, the governor, and he made sure that France would not be humiliated like that happened to them in Vietnam. And so they were fighting hard to destroy any opposing forces to France, just like they did in Vietnam. And also after the Second World War, France was extremely poor. Not only France, many European countries were extremely poor because of the infrastructural destruction that occurred during the Second World War. And so they never wanted to let their colonies go. They wanted to extract them. And so, again, the French government was very unstable because they were controlled by the Germans. They were rescued by the Americans during the Second World War, and they were trying to find their way and couldn't get their real standing. So in 1958, Charles de Gaulle became the upper hand and then created this Fifth Republic that is still in place. It is important for us to remember those dates because before 1958, the French had, knowing that Cameroon was part of their colony, after the League of Nations territory was given to them, they had chosen Mbida to rule La République du Cameroun on their behalf. But the French did not trust him, they were afraid. So they went and picked Ahidjo, an obscure figure from the north that they could easily manipulate, and imposed him by displacing Mbida and imposed him on the Francophones as a prime minister in 1958. And then just less than a week before France gave La République du Cameroun the pseudo-false independence, they signed the cooperation agreement that we've talked about in some programs here. So Ahidjo signed and committed himself to be submissive and subservient to the French, according to that cooperation agreement. And that's why the French allowed now to come out and claim that they were independent when they were not, as they were fighting and killing all these true independent-minded Francophones that wanted true liberation from the France to be by themselves. And so Ahidjo was now literally in the hands of the French, a puppet. And remember that Ahidjo was replaced in 1982 by Biya, another puppet in the hands of the French. I'm bringing this out to show that the French have always controlled everything in La République du Cameroun. The president of La République du Cameroun does not have any power of himself. He has to get authority from the French to do the things that he's doing in Cameroon. And as long as he's serving the interest of the French and they are satisfied with what he's doing, they keep him there. And so La République du Cameroun has never been independent. And we were forced to join these people who were at war, being killed by the French, and they have never had independence. And now we are now subjugated to the same individuals, and the French have carried out the same atrocities that they did against us. And that's what has happened in the Amazonian War. That's why you see that the practice is the same as you saw in the video, what they did to us.
Wow, thank you so much, Doc. I want us to listen to the English version of that, describing that war, because there's some elements in it that we can take and compare to what is really happening to us now. And the idea of paying restitution in terms of maybe losses and all the like came up towards the end of the other clip. We may not even see that, but I want us to talk briefly about that. So if we can have the English version talking about, they call it the Bamileke War, so we can understand how France was such an evil nation, and has always been an evil nation in terms of what it does to other people to benefit itself. knowing that they're really out to get our resources mainly. There's I think there was one president said that France will be a third world nation if it were not of all the minerals and wealth that it's benefiting from African nations. So let's listen to the English version, and then we can continue our conversation.
Can we call to play it?
Well, while we're waiting for that to come on, Doc, I wanted to find out from you.
Focus report, and this Friday we look into a dark yet little known chapter of France and Cameroon's common history. In the 1950s and 60s, the French army fought alongside Cameroonian government forces against members of the leftist UPC movement, which it labelled as rebels. Historians say that during this little known war, tens of thousands of people were killed. France 24 talked to a crucial witness who saw massacres being committed. A report carried out in France and Cameroon by Nicolas Germain, with Marcela Moko, Zigoto Chaya, Melina Huet and Sylvain Rousseau.
In a remote village in southwest France, this former French soldier took part in a war that few people, even in France, have heard of. One which has been described as the beginning of France-Afrique, the murky relationship between Paris and its former African colonies. Bardet was sent to Cameroon between 1962 and 1964 in the western Bamileke region. He was a helicopter pilot and witnessed several massacres committed by the Cameroonian army. It was strongly supported and funded by France.
That's a Bell 47 G2, 280 horsepower, a very small helicopter, just 3 seats.
The Cameroonian army, backed by France, targeted members of the UPC, a party that opposed President Amadou Ahidjo. The UPC believed that after independence in 1960, Ahidjo was simply France's hand-picked puppet. For the first time on television, Max Bardet describes the atrocities he saw.
Soldiers of the Cameroonian army were ordered to kill the men, but not the women. Women would be left to agonize. Most had been wounded by AK-47 bullets. But not only that, what I want to say is that they would also cut off their breasts and disembowel them.
During these massacres, Max Bardet was accompanied by a French officer.
The officer who was with me was here to be on the lookout and make sure no one would witness what was going on, that no one could ever testify or accuse France and the few members of the French military still present in Cameroon of being involved in what was going on.
Bardet says he understands why many Cameroonians remain bitter.
If I were them, I would be angry with the French or with France. Yes, really, I would.
A new book on this topic called The War in Cameroon has just come out in France.
The French carried on with their military activities, albeit discreetly. They would manage or supervise operations rather than having a massive military presence on the ground. This way they could crack down on the UPC nationalists, that's the Union of Cameroonian People, but also on all those suspected of supporting this movement, the so-called subversive elements. This repression, this crackdown was so discreet it was like a secret operation. Indeed, back in France, no one was aware of the extent of these military operations. But not only were these operations off the radar, they were also extremely violent. In the 1960s, you had entire villages being destroyed in air raids. People were being forced into camps surrounded with barbed wire. Torture was becoming systematic.
The revelations in this book come after those published in the first edition, and they could have legal and financial consequences for France.
The French government is fully aware that the Mau Mau, a group that was violently repressed in Kenya in a similar way and at a similar time, sued the British government a few years ago and won compensations. Lawsuits are still being filed. So I think the French government wouldn't like to find itself in a similar position. But they're also worried of the conclusions that could be drawn from their implication in the war in Cameroon. Because beyond the violent repression, it was one of the cornerstones in building a very peculiar system of French governance. Not only in Cameroon, but in all of France's former colonies in Africa. So yes, if people start taking a closer look at what happened during this war, this is something deeply worrying for the French government. And this regardless of whether the government is on the left or on the right.
In Cameroon, some still remember the massacres of the 1950s and 60s. Tadeye Melon used to be the bodyguard of one of the UPC's leaders.
In this war, there was no mercy. They bombed places and didn't care if women or children were living there.
Tadeye Melon fought for many years in the Bamileke region against the French and Cameroonian armies. He was badly wounded.
After we had been ambushed, I ran away and I fell in a hole. My wound was so bad I lost consciousness. Thankfully, someone carried me to the hospital.
He doesn't regret his years in the movement.
Better die standing than to live on your knees.
France's official position is slowly evolving. In 2009, Prime Minister François Fillon said accusations that France had taken part in the killing of rebel leaders were pure inventions. Last year in Cameroon, François Hollande was the first French president to admit there had been a repression, but he didn't say what actions France had carried out. Now some Cameroonian NGOs want to ask for reparations from France for its role in this war. A discreet war, but one in which tens of thousands of people were killed, according to French and Cameroonian historians.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by Judith Elondo, who heads the Africa Bureau at Internet Without Borders. Hello, thank you very much for being with us. Now, the notion of France-Afrique has always had a murky, worrying connotation, both on the political and the military front. Is it time for the French public to see what's under that veil of secrecy, do you think?
Absolutely. It was highly time for such secrecy to be lifted up for two reasons. The first reason is that from a diplomatic perspective, relationship between France and Cameroon have always been very friendly and very warm. But from a non-institutional point of view, that is to say the Cameroonian citizens, Cameroonian civil society intellectuals, there is now a sort of suspicion against the France as a state. This suspicion was expressed during...
Thank you so much. Doc, I want you to comment on that. There's one thing that is a little bit unique in the presentation of this one. The mention of, towards the end of reparations, that maybe the French Cameroonians can ask for reparations. What do you think about that as we then discuss what is happening to Southern Cameroons in terms of a similar war on us for the same reason?
I don't really think that the French Cameroonians will ever ask the French for reparations. They are not cognitively, mentally sophisticated. They have truly never experienced independence. They have never truly experienced any freedom of speech. You should remember that the people of Southern Cameroon are different. We left Enugu in Nigeria in 1954, freely expressing ourselves, and went to Boya and practiced democracy, true democracy, for 6 years and exchanged government without gunfight, without a battle. These guys have never experienced it. They were subjugated by the French since the Germans were removed. And after the First World War, the French controlled them until they had a fake independence in 1960. And since then, they have been controlled by another French-controlled government under Biya till today, and are used to nothing other than bribery and corruption. So when people try to raise their voices, they look for the ringleaders, either kill them, bribe them, or do things to compromise them, so that they don't have the stamina. Whenever, say, the teachers got angry and tried to complain that their salaries were not being paid, They look for the ringleaders, call them into the ministries, bribe them, and then the thing dies. So I don't think French Cameroon will ever truly ask for reparations. And even if they did, I don't think that France will do it, because France is a very wicked, cruel country. It's not a generous country.
Okay, so following all this, how has the people of the former British Southern Cameroons suffered, and what have they lost under these two eras of Francophone French leadership? Because we know that, as it's mentioned here, Ahidjo was put there as a stooge, followed by Biya, or because of France's manipulations. How has that impacted Southern Cameroons?
In fact, like we mentioned, Ahidjo was fully under the control of the French, just as Biya is totally fully under the control of the French. And so our independence that we had experienced from 1954 to 1961 was compromised, was stolen away from us. We no longer had the freedom of expression, politically voting for one side or the other. Remember that in their country, elections are rigged. Our elections were not being rigged. You heard in that video that Ahidjo was elected 100%. That was before their independence, to make him the president of La République du Cameroun. And since then, in La République du Cameroun, they keep changing things, just like in the plebiscite, that you either vote yes or oui. And so our true political expression that we had experienced was stolen away from us. Our true independence, again, was stolen away from us. And even going back into the prospects of our development, if we had our true independence, was stolen away from us. Just look at the English-speaking nations. They are not perfect. You can compare their level of development. You realize that they are much more superiorly developed than French-speaking nations, apart from Ivory Coast, that has some semblance of independence. If we truly had our independence and manifested our political maturity as we were doing, we would have been much, much further than we are today. The other thing is that Ahidjo and Biya have two different personalities, though they are both totally under the control of the French. In 1977, this is what happened. Under the control of the French, Ahidjo tried to do his little best to see what he could do for the nation. So what happened in 1977, Samuel Eboa, the Secretary General, writes that Ahidjo learned of how his Minister of Education was embezzling funds. That means this man was a Bulu guy who had been Minister of Finance. And he was changed, as they usually change government, and he was sent to the Ministry of Education. And he was given money to create a university of technology. Now, La République does not even have that university till today. And that minister was holding meetings to plan what to do about that university. And what Ahidjo found out was that this minister was in the gatherings where they met to discuss this. Each session, each member got 100,000 francs. Remember, in 1970, a lot of money. While the minister himself got 600,000 francs. And they were meeting more frequently. When Ahidjo learned this, he was so infuriated that he dismissed this minister within 48 hours and replaced him with Adamu Damjoya in 1977. Now, during Biya's reign, what has happened? Biya has allowed them to embezzle so much that embezzlement is normal. In fact, when they ask him about ministers embezzling, he asked them, where is the proof? And then he turned around and even asked some of the ministers, where is my own portion of the money that you have embezzled? Embezzlement is in the DNA of the Owondobulus. And so when Ahidjo, as a Muslim, tried his little best to restrain on embezzlement in public service, this other person has come and literally all the funds have disappeared. The other thing that I wanted to bring out was there were figures of investments in development that La République has done. What we realized was that he does the most investments in his region in the south, where he comes from. He literally nationalized tribalism. And then the regions, say the northwest and southwest, were given just about 50 billion of the national budget, which is close to 6 to 7 billion a year for development in the entire region, while his region was getting over 200 billion a year. And aside from that, he's invested over 2,000 billion in development just for the South, wanting to make Kribi be the main city over Douala and all those things. And yet all of that money has been embezzled. So you realize that our resources were carried away. Remember, Southern Cameroon produces over 60% of what the country uses for its GDP and resources. They carried away all our resources that would have helped develop our country and for our people to literally live in wealth and actualize their potentials as human beings. He carried all of that and embezzled it with his ministers, hiding them in Swiss accounts and in foreign accounts. And then the little investments he concentrated in his own region, and even the money that was concentrated in his region was embezzled, and they don't have much to show for it. Those are some of the things that we have lost, the potentials that we had that have been taken away from us.
Excellent. Talking about UPC and what aspiration they had, one thing was clear, that they also were hoping that the Southern Cameroons would be part of them, would support them, and they came up with this, idea of unification. Let me read something still in this book that was written by Professor Carson Anyangwe. And this also highlights what Ahijo said, which is really different from what we are experiencing today. In light of the UPC's well-known agitation for the outright annexation of the British Cameroons to French Cameroon, Ahijo seized every opportunity in the next 2 years to deny any intention to annex the British Cameroons. During the 849th meeting of the Fourth Committee of the United Nations on the 25th of February 1959, Ahijo was asked what form of the reunification, in quote, he was talking about would take. He replied, "I would not like the firmness and clarity of our stand to be interpreted as a desire for integration on my part, which would sound the death knell to the hopes of our brothers under British administration. We do not want to bring the weight of our population to bear on our British brothers. We are not annexationists. In other words, if our brothers of the British zone wish to unite with an independent Cameroon, we are ready to discuss the matter with them, but we will discuss it on a footing of equality." Okay, then in June of 1960, so this statement was made before they had their independence, which was just a year later on in 1990, and ours was 2 years later. In June of 1960, and now they're already independent, he again strenuously denied any annexationist design on the part of Cameroon Republic. He said, "I have said and repeated in the name of the government that we do not have any annexationist design. The reunification," and they keep on using the word reunification, "the reunification must be carried out with the consent of our compatriots over the Mongo." And then a month later, Ahijo paid an official visit to the Southern Cameroons. At the Tico airport, he made a speech in which he once more vehemently denied any annexationist intentions on the part of Cameroon Republic. And this is what he said: "For us, there can be no question of annexation. We have envisaged a flexible form of union, a federal form." So we are bringing this up because now we're going to talk about the war in Southern Cameroons. This was what France did to make sure that French Cameroon remained under their thumb. And then, for whatever reason, they manipulated us. You already talked about the agreement, cooperation agreement of 1959. And then now, after the fake federation, we got engulfed by them, literally engulfed by them. And all those promises that Ahidjo made went to the wayside. They were all false promises. Now, in 2017, because of our teachers and lawyers having made all these strikes, asking for what we have lost for so many years, the response was a war that we all know how villages were burned down, how our people were running in bushes for their lives, how we now have a population of refugees in neighboring Nigeria and other African nations, some perishing on the way coming to South America to come to the United States. I want to bring up some comparison. Ernest Wanji and the others were arrested and executed on, I believe it was January 5th of 2018. Ayuk Tabe and the Naira 10 were picked up in Nigeria, taken to La République du Cameroon, locked up, but they were not executed. Do you know why they were not executed? We are in the days of social media. We have a strong, talk about human rights these days. So it was not something that La République could easily get away with. Otherwise, they would have gotten away with it. They could have just killed them, but they knew they could not do that, as they did several years ago. So they are locked up in Kundingi now for so many years. Doc, I don't know whether you want to talk about some of this comparison, and then we'll move to the next topic later on, immediately.
I'll take you on a small journey here. Some historians have said that it's not only Germany that lost the First and Second World War, but the original German Cameroon colony also lost the First and Second World War. And during, if you look at all the African countries on the African continent, the country that is suffering the most from all what has happened to them is Cameroon, which was originally a German colony. And of that group within the original German Cameroon, the English-speaking Cameroon are the ones that have suffered the most collateral damage. Let me try to explain this a little bit. The Germans had carved out Cameroon as their colony, just as they had Tanzania. And they had Southwest Africa as well as Togo. And what happened is that after the Germans were defeated during the First World War, most of the German territory is with the French in Chad, in Central African Republic, in Congo, and even in Gabon. The small portion that was controlled by the British, you had the former Southern Cameroons, which is who we are, and then the former Northern British Cameroons, which is with Nigeria at this time. So the reason I'm bringing this out, you said that the UPC people were asking for the reunification of the nation. What the UPC was thinking about was the original German Cameroon, which basically meant that we would literally have to get the Northern Cameroons, which is with Nigeria, with us as well, and the parts of the German Cameroon that are in Chad, in Central African Republic, in Gabon, and Congo, back to the original German Cameroon, and as one nation, liberated. That's what the UPC was fighting for. But you realize that Tanzania went to the English only. Togo, unfortunately, was separated. There was part controlled by the British and part controlled by the French. That part that was controlled by the British is with Ghana today. We'll leave that one. We'll not talk about it. But let's come to Cameroon. So what happened with Cameroon is that the French had a lot of German Cameroon, plus a little portion of the German Cameroon that they were controlling, and the British had our own. So when we were now being prepared for independence, the two people met together, connived and conspired against us, And we in the former British Southern Cameroon were more heterogeneous in our thinking and talking. The Muslims in the north of the former Northern Cameroon, they were homogeneous. So the British gave them, the leaders, a Land Rover and £100, and they told their citizens to vote to stay with Britain, namely Nigeria, and that's what they did. But with us, we had people with different minds. That's why you had Endele from the south that had a wife from Nigeria, and then you had Foncha, whose parents immigrated to us from Chang. And so he wanted to be with La République du Cameroun for those ethnic reasons. Endele felt it may be better for us to go back to Nigeria, even though we left Enugu. And so we were debating and negotiating and talking like we practice our democracy, which La République citizens don't know anything about. And because Foncha won the war, the debate, that's why we voted to stay with La République du Cameroun. And unfortunately, the French had a wicked plan. The French didn't care about the portions of the German Cameroon that were with Chad, the Central African Republic, and Gabon, because they had it in their back. They just wanted to keep Cameroon under their control, and they let the British have the other portion over there and exchange some little £2 million to have us back. And now we came with our British heritage, the political maturity we had acquired into this unfortunate situation where there was war in La République du Cameroon. People who have never been educated and have no political maturity till today, they don't. They are given bribes, envelopes to vote as a bloc, the CPDM people. And the other people from other parties, they give them envelopes to compromise them. They don't have the freedom to think for themselves and vote their consciences on what they think is good for the nation. Those are the people that we joined. And so that is the tragedy, because we now of the former British Southern Cameroon, we have, if you look at the level of development, look at our roads, look at the road to Womb. Do you see those kinds of roads in other African countries, even Francophone African countries? We have been so disadvantaged that our people are suffering so much and now begging for crumbs. And some of them are even happy to be allowed to have some little leftover crumbs from La République du Cameroun. That is the tragedy that has happened to us. But the future is not bleak. The future is bright. And that's what we'll be talking as we go on with the discussions.
Yes, the future, talking about the future. We're going to move to the next topic that has to do with the future leaders of both La République du Cameroun and Ambazonia. So the goal for every nation is to have leaders that have the interest of the people at heart. We realize that for the past 60 plus years in La République du Cameroun, that has not really been accomplished or achieved. And now this is 2025. They have elections coming up in October. So I want to ask you this question. What kind of new leadership should we expect to emerge for the two countries after the demise of the current? And it's possible that the current when I say, let's talk about La République du Cameroun and then we talk about Southern Cameroons, because we know that in reality, they may have some control over our land, but things are going down here fast enough that we are not part of them. We have our people living in their territory. They are there physically, but mentally, they know that they belong to Southern Cameroons. They know that that is where they will end up eventually. So in light of this, in light of the discussion that we've had, where France has been the manipulator behind the leaders from 1961 till now, what do you see? What does the future hold for? Let's talk about French Cameroon first, and then we'll talk about Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia.
Yeah, the French will try their best, as much as they think they can, to do what they have always done when they brought in Ahijo and maneuvered Mbida, imposed Ahijo, controlled him until they were concerned, and then put in Biya that they have been using to date. They will try to do something similar using bribery and corruption, manipulation. In fact, the philosophy when they came from Indochina was to use military means and psychological means to manipulate the colonies under their subjugation. So they are using the same tactics in La République du Cameroon. They will use the military to kill. They will use psychological means to manipulate, tell lies, and then bribery and corruption, which is inherent in the French. They are used to that. That is nothing bad for them. So they use bribery and corruption. They will try to do the same thing in La République du Cameroon to bring a kind of government that they can still control. But unfortunately for the French, they will not control. The situation is going to change. Like you mentioned, we're already today in the era of social media. The eyes of the Francophones who are so docile are being opened. They're realizing how their country has been abandoned to a landfill of refuse, dirt in Yaoundé and Douala and everywhere. You see them complaining. They realize that their country, their citizens have been abandoned by the ruling class. And they will stand up. In spite of all the maneuvering controlled by the French or not, and by the La République du Cameroon government, they will not succeed. When these young people will stand up, change will occur. There's going to be some turbulence. Unfortunately, some people are going to die. There's going to be trouble in their land. But eventually, the change will come. It may take a couple of years. Change does not just come instantly. It may take a couple of years, but the change will emerge. That is what I think is going to happen in La République du Cameroon. And it's not going to be the government that you see there right now. That government will be swept into the dustbin of history. They will be wiped out. Just like Ada Compare in Burkina Faso, all the other governments that the French were controlling in other Francophone Africas are being swept out. They have a last stand now in Ivory Coast that they're using Ouattara there. In Senegal also they were removed in the Sahel region. You know that the French have been kicked out. And then they tried to fake something in Gabon as well as even in Chad. But gradually and gradually, the French will lose it. They will not have control. And true leadership will emerge among the people. And even the Francophones will also have true leadership. But it's going to be a time of difference, a time of turbulence. Right now, the French are struggling to figure out what they can do. And so they have even warned Atanganji to be careful to make sure that Kamto is not excluded from the elections, because that's what he's been trying to do. They think that Kamto is the strongest opposition candidate and Kabara Libi, so he tried to take somebody from Kabara Libi's party and sideline Kabara Libi, who was one of the leaders in those days in the past election, and then try to disenfranchise Kamto and then just play around and put somebody from there among them, but it's still not going to work. All that maneuvering is going to fail. So the change is coming and they have no choice about it. In terms of the children of the former British Southern Cameroon, change is coming. And I don't have what you may call a special vision or some kind of prophecy that has been given to me to tell people, but no, the change is coming. As La République crumbles, the people of the former British Southern Cameroon will emerge as an independent nation, and the people are mature enough to choose their leadership. During this time of the crisis that La République has been killing our people, we've seen all kinds of leadership come across and expressing themselves and trying to put themselves out there as the leaders. The people have observed them, they notice them, they know who they are. I trust the people to choose the right leaders. I'm in no way seeking in any way to take any position of leadership. I have no interest in that. But I trust our people. I believe in our people. They will be able to choose the rightful leaders. And I also have faith that we have gone through so much suffering that we will not tolerate another person trying to come and be a dictator and terrorist in our country going around killing people. The people will only accept good leaders that are working for the benefit of the people. They have good examples like Traoré in Burkina Faso. Those are examples to follow. We will get our own true good leaders that will emerge, that have the interest of the people, who work not for their stomachs or for their bank accounts, but serve the people. And they only eat to gain energy to continue the work. They don't eat to get fat. So that leadership is going to emerge. Right now, I cannot put my finger on who I may call to be that leader. The leadership may emerge from the ground. It may come from the diaspora, but it's going to come. As we have time, I can explain why I said the things that I just said.
Yes, I'm going to have you explain that. But before you get to that, I still want to talk about the leadership in La République du Cameroon. So we understand that as is their culture, they've been throwing away change here and there to bribe people to support one particular candidate who is someone we believe is not mentally savvy enough to continue leading La République du Cameroon, talking about Ibia. We also know that his son, Frank, has also been put as one of the possible, is a possible candidate. But I think we really need to challenge the people from La République du Cameroon that if they want change that will benefit the people, and when you talk about benefit the people, you want a leader that will make sure that your country thrives, your country is expanding economically, the people are happy, the healthcare is up to date, the healthcare is strong enough to take care of the population, the educational system is solid, the infrastructure is solid in terms of people having the possibilities of navigating from one place to other easily, to facilitate trading. You want a country that is developed as best as it can, given the fact that it has so much wealth. So considering all this, you would think that they will think about a leader who can deliver everything that I just mentioned and more. But if they are already planning to celebrate or to approve someone who has been there, that using the phrase dead man walking may be too brutal, but it's someone whose mental acuity is not high enough to be a leader for a nation like that. If people are there celebrating him and still wanting him to be a leader, then you have a problem. But another thing that they need to consider is that Southern Cameroons is not part of that picture. They need a leader who will embrace that idea, that embrace the fact that Southern Cameroons is not part of La République du Cameroon, will never be part of La République du Cameroon, and have to entertain the fact that the best way forward for both nations is for them to support a free and thriving Southern Cameroons. Because if Southern Cameroons is thriving and is free, La République will be a healthier nation. Doc, just talk to us about this, because I think it's an important topic in terms of this future leadership.
I think that the eyes of the Francophones are being opened. If you have been watching social media, young people are decrying the fact that their capital city is a refuse collection, how dirty it is. And they keep referring to somebody being in power for 43 years, some even exaggerating to 45 years, and things like that, and saying that how could you be in power and the capital city is like this. One of their ministers, Jean-Didier Momo, who used to pretend to be opposition and he was being co-opted, he claims that he drives through Yaoundé and he does not see the refuse that people are talking about, that he does not see the potholes that people are talking about. That's what happens to you when they have bribed you and hypnotized you in their secret societies. Then you don't see what is obvious to everybody. So the young people's eyes are being opened. And basically what they are trying to do is they just want to use this old person to hold the seat, to play another game like they did on Ahidjo and Bida, and then Ahidjo and Biya, to replace Biya with the person that the French can use. That's all that is going on there right now.
Exactly.
They're just pretending. They know that Biya is an old man. He's going to die very soon. I talk about Charles de Gaulle, who founded the current Republic of France, Fifth Republic of France controlling order. He was born in 1890 and he died in 1970. So he was only 80 years old. Most politicians, most human beings, they die somewhere between 80 and 90 if they happen to live well and for a long time. Bukete died at 102. We do know that there are some few individuals on planet Earth who live to be 116. I'm speaking here as a physician. But this guy at 92, he was born in 1933, February 13th. He does not have the competency to carry on any other 7 years. They're just pretending and maneuvering to let him hold the seat, thinking that they will rig the elections again and claim that he's won, and then do one of those French tricks again and then replace him with the person that the French want. That's all that is going on there. But in spite of that, they will not succeed. And I have good reasons why I believe that they will not succeed. And it is carved in stone. It cannot be changed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the take-home message is that for those our French brothers and sisters in La République du Cameroon, you have to find a way to take control of your land, meaning that it is time to make sure that France doesn't put a third president in your short history. They had Ahidjo, they had Biya. Don't give them the opportunity to put the third president, knowing that the sole purpose for France relationship with most of these African colonies is just to exploit them. And we need to be able to make sure that Africa stays for Africa. And I really thank God for this young leader, Ibrahim Traore, for what he's doing, because he's opening the eyes of most African countries, that if he can do it, why can your own nation not do the same thing when you have all the wealth and natural resources? Talking about Southern Cameroon's leader, I know you already mentioned that you don't have any special knowledge, but you believe that they will come when the time comes. A leader will arise that will work for the people, that will be chosen by the people, and that will lead the people in the way that it deserves. Right now, our leader is President Sako, who is going to be, I'm sure, coming on ABC anytime. I don't know, maybe next week or the following week. He's always on ABC to educate us on our national television. We want people to realize that it's not easy doing what he has done for so many years. He came into power right after Sissoco Ayuko was and the Naira 10 were captured. And think about this. Let's put this in perspective. If there was no Sako, if after Sissoco Ayutabi and the Naira 10 were captured and nobody took over, do you know what would have happened? What do you think, Doc? If nothing had happened after Sissoco Ayutabi was arrested, taken to Kundengi, and the diaspora just stayed completely dead, quiet, what would have happened?
I believe that he is a God-given leader in this revolutionary phase. And we'll see after the total umbilical cord has been cut off and we are separated, God may grant him grace to lead in Boya, but he has been the God-given leader in this revolutionary phase. Remember, since 1961, we have had leaders chosen among Ambazonians that the French, using Ahidjo, compromised, bribed them, killed some, and did everything to subvert our will, the people's intentions. And then we have heard the story how in the 1980s, people like Dinka came forward to decry the injustice and the treachery of Biya reverting back to his state, pretending, basically canceling the so-called federation that you mentioned, Ahidjo talking about there. And they persecuted him and he's abroad, still alive. And then Frundi came, carried the hopes of the people, and Frundi was given small chop. He was given bribery after he won the elections in 1992. He took the bribe and people didn't know he was going around pretending to still be a leader of the opposition when he had been bribed, and he took the money. So they go around bribing people, killing some, disabling them by locking them up. And God has granted grace that we have had President Sako, who will not allow himself to be bribed. La République has sent several missions, Funky and the Nkeas and church people and politicians and all kinds of people to find ways to find all the leaders abroad and bribe them or poison them and kill them, send military people. But thank goodness, they have not been able to find him to kill. And thank goodness he's not allowed himself to be bribed. And so in this revolutionary phase, he has really saved the revolution by standing true to the cause of the children of Amazonia. So many people have spoken like they're from Amazonia, and in a very short time, they start speaking a different language, like they drank too much and got drunk. And we're speaking like drunkards, speaking a different language.
Exactly.
All those people know who they are. And like I said,
Yes.
our people have suffered so much. They know everybody. And when the time comes for them to choose their leaders, because when we have our freedom, when we settled in Boya, our capital, and we sit down and carve out our final governing articles of of governance, the final constitution, and the choosing the leaders, the people will make the right choice. They know who is
Absolutely.
who. And
The
so
people will decide.
that's what I believe. So we thank God for him. We pray for him.
Yes.
We pray that God will keep him and continue to use him. And if he is not there, God is the leader of the revolution. God created us. God created the entire universe. Amazonia, or the former British Southern Cameroon, is a territory on planet Earth that God created that belongs to him. The human beings God created in his image, and he loves them. And God will ensure that the people have the leadership they deserve and that they need, and that their needs are met. So I look up to God.
Thank you so much. We'll be coming to the end of the program any moment now. When I ask that question, I myself, I personally believe that if President Saku had not accepted to take the baton from Siseko, and really when he took it, he was more like what they call an interim, helping out while Siseko was there. But if he had not been in that position to do that, I think that the concept of Ambazonia, Southern Cameroons, would have been set back so many decades. I still think that our children, down the road, people will keep on fighting. They would have been set so much behind because La République may have even used that opportunity to even find reasons to kill Siseko and the Nera 10, just like they did Ernest Wandi, because they couldn't do that. It was too obvious because now you have people that are in the diaspora supporting the Nera 10. You have another government. You have a government that has continued because Siseko now gave over to Sako. So now they don't have the ammunition to do what they intended to do. So I think we should be grateful for those who are out there criticizing him, because some people are doing that. We should be grateful for what he has done. And again, as Dr. Lobadi has said, when the time comes for us to have total control of our land, the Lord God will provide, will give us the knowledge to choose the rightful leader for our nation. Doc, I need you to give us your closing remarks. Let me see if I still had another question for you that will help you close this topic today. Well, it may be too broad a question. What future should we expect for our people? I wrote that down.
Okay.
Any good
I will
advice?
take it. I will carry it worldwide and then zoom in on our people. Now, if you look at the nations, you notice that many people like to assume characteristics of animals. Even in sports, you find people like to give the names of their sporting team with the name of an animal. So I would like to highlight certain things. The animal symbol of the French is a cock, which is the male form of a chicken. That is the animal symbol of the French. The animal symbol of the United States that people know is the bald eagle. That flies in the air. That is the king of the birds in the air that captures animals. The animal symbols of Great Britain are the lion and the unicorn, which some people think is a horse with one horn in the center of its head, but some people think is a rhinoceros. And if you happen to watch Animal Kingdom, you notice that the rhinoceros goes around majestically, is very big, and with its horn, the lion is afraid to be chased by the rhinoceros because once it pierces you with the horn, you're a dead person. So the animal symbols for Great Britain are the lion as well as the rhinoceros or the horse with a symbol in the center of his head. The animal symbol for Russia is a bear, and we talk about the Chinese bear as well, the panda bear. And the animal symbol for Germany, actually, which is not being portrayed, is a leopard. That's why they call their military weapon the leopard. Now, so why do I bring those here? So when you put a hen, a cock, in front of those animals, you notice that the cock will be consumed. That's why the French are a weak nation. They have always been defeated in all the major wars. Go back to the wars. Not only was Napoleon Bonaparte crushed in the Waterloo battle, but even the Germans defeated them in 1870, and all the First and Second World Wars. It's the Americans that are coming there to rescue them. The U.S. military weaponry is mostly in the air. They fly in the air and go bomb and come back. That's why the animal symbol is the eagle. And then, of course, you have the others there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the French are not as strong as people think. And they will lose it, and they will lose control of all their territories. It's not a question of whether, but rather that it's going to be. And so you see it happening. They lost in North America. They lost in Indochina, Vietnam that I talked about. They lost in Algeria. They're losing all across Africa. They're pretending to try and hang on to Cameroon and some few other countries. But even there as well, the French will lose control. And those countries will become totally free and independent. The story of La République du Cameroun, I had said in some other programs, is well carved out in the flag of that nation. And I explained to you that it is green, red, yellow. There are three phases that country is going to go through. The first phase was under Ahidjo, where he ruled for 22 years. And at that time, we experimented on the two-state system, the so-called federation. That's why you see on the green, during the time of Ahidjo, the two stars representing La République du Cameroun and English Cameroon. And during Ahidjo's time, there was relative prosperity. He talked about the Green Revolution. People could live on what they worked and earned. Parents could feed their children and do a lot of things. Then when Ahidjo passed on, he went over to Biya's turn, which is the red, with the one star on it. Like Biya came and annulled the unit, the two states, and went back to his La République du Cameroun. And now we only have one star on the red. If you look carefully, the flag of the CBDM party is a torch of fire that burns things. Red also symbolizes blood. And so during Biya's turn, you had a genocide in Amazonia where over 60,000 people have been killed. So a lot of burnings of markets and even ministries, offices, important documents, even electoral vote documents that could be looked into again and counted, they burned them. So government is characterized by bloodshed, burning of things, characterized, you see it in their flag. And when Biya is gone, people need to hear this very well. When Biya is gone, we are going to move to a new phase, which is the yellow. And if you notice, the color of the individual states when it was on the green was yellow. The color on the red for the one unitary state that Biya is advocating is yellow. And when these two states move on to the next phase of the history of that country, which is yellow, you notice that the identity of the states will disappear because the yellow of representing Francophone and English-speaking Cameroon will be the same as that. What that basically means is that each of us will assume our true identity. The English-speaking will become their true self, and the Francophones will become their true self. That's what is going to happen. And the French, it does not matter what they do. It does not matter who is their president. All their maneuvering is going to end in a fiasco and they will lose it.
Thank you so much. That is excellent. I was not given any special request to advertise this book, Imperialistic Politics in Cameroon. But I want to suggest that, especially those living in La République du Cameroun, our elites, our Southern Cameroonian brothers and sisters that are living, that are ingrained in La République territory, to get the book and read, because knowledge is power. When you read this, you can only be firmer in your belief that Southern Cameroons should and must be a nation by its own right. So let me just read something at the back of the book so that it may inspire some of you to go get it. It says, it always comes as a surprise to many that the British administered UN territory of the Southern Cameroons was not granted independence like other colonial territories, but was allowed to fall prey to the territorial expansionism of the contiguous state of Cameroon Republic, a former French-administered UN trust territory, granted independence on January 1st, 1960. This book focuses on the unresolved Southern Cameroon's colonial predicament, giving insightful accounts of how Cameroon Republic hijacked the Southern Cameroons and its holding its citizens under colonial bondage. The insights include details of the stratagems resorted to by Cameroon Republic to exact submission to its annexation of the Southern Cameroons and to conceal this crime from outside censure. These attempts have met and continue to meet with stiff resistance by the people of the Southern Cameroons. The book is a contribution to the loud and intense conversation on the inevitability of the restoration of the stolen statehood of the former British Southern Cameroons, the restitution of its occupied territory, and the reassertion of the dignity and humanity of its people. So, this is a clarion call that we all get information, we all understand why we continue to fight. And for those of us in the diaspora, I want to applaud you that most of us can do one thing mainly. We can give financial contribution to our government. We can support the federal government. If your local government is active, support your local government. If it's not active, support the federal government. Support ABC Amba Television, where we are right now. ABC Amba Television is the television of the government. Through this television, you get news, you get exciting information, you keep track with trends of what is happening. And through this television, you are aspired that you someday get the land that is rightfully yours for your children, for children to come, great-grandchildren. Sometimes we are fighting for future generations, not necessarily for ourselves. Doc, I'm going to give you one moment to just give your final closing comment and we'll end the program.
Yes, I want to encourage our people to be bold, to be confident, self-confident. Let them know that the regime in Yaoundé is a corpse waiting to be buried. Therefore, plan your future. Don't be worried about them. Plan your future. If you have plans for whatever developments that is in your heart of that which is truly yours, go on and carry it on. That regime is, before you open your eyes, they are gone. You're just waiting. People are waiting for October 2025. Don't wait for October 2025. Go on and possess what is yours. And live with your head held high as in your own land, and don't worry about them. They will just vanish like butter in the sun at noonday. They'll just melt away. You will see it with your own very eyes. That's what I will tell them right now.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on the horizon, the voice of the Amba Woman. And I just want to appreciate those of you watching. I'm sorry I came down with a cold, so my voice is a little bit croaky or cocky, whatever you want to describe it. I want to appreciate those of you who always watch the horizon, the voice of the Amba Woman. And we pray to come back next week with more exciting information. Thank you so much. And remember, Dr. Lomati said, be bold, know what you want, know where you want to go to, and stick with it. And finally, let's continue to draft for our people. Let's continue to support those who are refugees in neighboring La Republique. Let's continue to support our prisoners of conscience and hope that we get to Buea sooner than later. Thank you so much and see you next week.
Very good. Thank you very much. God bless. Yes, Lord.
Sauf qu'il peut. Et c'est comme ça que les corps tombaient. Je ne marchais pas encore comme maintenant. J'ai piétiné. Les cadavres comme ça. Les mitrailleuses, vous voyez même, ça coupait les ailes.
La France continue à nier officiellement. François Fillon est allé à Yaoundé en 2009 et a dit « Tout ce que vous racontez, ce sont de pures inventions ». Pourquoi est-ce qu'ils nient? Parce qu'ils en ont honte, parce que c'est pas très glorieux d'avoir fait une guerre à un parti qui était l'Union des populations du Cameroun, l'UPC, qui réclamait seulement l'indépendance, qui réclamait seulement la démocratie. Et c'est pour empêcher ça que la France a mené une guerre avec ses alliés camerounais de l'époque face à ce parti-là. Et il y a eu des atrocités, il y a eu des bombardements, il y a eu des tortures.
Vous connaissez à peu près le bilan de cette guerre?
C'est difficile à chiffrer, les estimations qu'on a tournent autour de 100 000 morts, mais ce sont des estimations qui viennent souvent de sources françaises, donc peut-être minimisées, et on peut penser qu'il y en a eu plus que ça. C'est assez difficile à dire. Nous, on ne s'est pas vraiment axé sur le bilan chiffré, on essaie de montrer les mécanismes qui ont conduit à cette guerre et qui ont conduit à la confiscation de l'indépendance.
Contrairement à ce que certains voudraient faire croire, la colonisation ne s'est pas déroulée comme l'entrée d'un couteau dans du beurre. Les Africains n'étaient pas des lâches. Nombreux sont ceux qui ont combattu avec courage contre la domination coloniale, souvent au prix de leur vie. Ces résistants ont donné naissance à de véritables guerres, et l'une des plus meurtrières en Afrique reste la guerre du Cameroun. Plus de 200 000 personnes ont péri, victimes des actes effroyables de l'armée coloniale française. Cette guerre, d'une importance capitale, devrait être connue de tous les Camerounais, et plus largement de tous les Africains. Pourtant, elle reste très peu documentée. On pourrait même dire qu'elle est sciemment placée sous le sceau du secret. Et c'est vraiment dommage car connaître son passé est essentiel pour comprendre son présent et mieux envisager son futur. Quand on regarde la relation actuelle entre le Cameroun et la France, il y a de quoi être troublé. On a l'impression qu'un crime de cette ampleur n'a jamais existé, comme si plus de 200 000 personnes étaient mortes pour rien du tout. Cette guerre, appelée guerre du Cameroun, guerre d'indépendance ou encore guerre de l'UPC, a duré plus de 15 ans. Elle a opposé les nationalistes camerounais dirigés par l'UPC à l'armée coloniale française, puis au gouvernement post-indépendance soutenu par Paris. Dans cette vidéo, nous allons découvrir comment le gouvernement colonial français a injustement dissous un parti politique nationaliste, comment des Camerounais ont risqué leur vie en prenant les armes face à des forces bien supérieures. Et surtout, comment la France a méthodiquement éliminé les leaders de ce mouvement tout en bombardant des régions entières du Cameroun. Sans plus tarder, la guerre du Cameroun, c'est maintenant. Comme le Togo, le Cameroun a une histoire particulière marquée par 3 colonisations, allemande, française et britannique. Les Allemands arrivent après les Portugais, mais ce sont eux qui instaurent la première colonisation officielle. Celle-ci dure 32 ans, de 1884 à 1916, et provoque d'énormes dégâts. Les Baka, par exemple, sont régulièrement traqués et étudiés comme des animaux. Certains sont même transportés en Allemagne pour être exposés dans des zoos humains ou lors d'expositions coloniales. Les Allemands n'hésitent pas non plus à réprimer violemment les premières résistances nationalistes camerounaises. Des figures comme Martin Paul Samba et Douala Mangabel, qui s'opposent à l'ordre colonial, sont exécutés. En 1914, la Première Guerre mondiale éclate. Pendant le conflit, la France et la Grande-Bretagne envahissent le Cameroun, battent les Allemands et les chassent du territoire en 1916. 3 ans plus tard, en 1919, soit 1 an après la fin de la guerre, le Cameroun est placé sous mandat de la Société des Nations. Le territoire est alors divisé. La partie orientale est administrée par la France et la partie occidentale par la Grande-Bretagne. les entreprises françaises et britanniques s'implantent rapidement pour exploiter les ressources naturelles. Dans de nombreuses régions, les Camerounais sont contraints aux travaux forcés au profit de ces compagnies. Pourtant, des voix s'élèvent de plus en plus contre cette exploitation, tant au Cameroun que dans la métropole. En France, par exemple, des membres du Parti communiste français PCF dénoncent la colonisation. En 1939, la Seconde Guerre mondiale éclate. Les Camerounais, enrôlés de force dans les bataillons des tirailleurs sénégalais, combattent pour la France. À la fin du conflit en 1945, beaucoup périssent au front, tandis que les survivants, bien que chanceux, ne reçoivent même pas les primes promises pour leur participation. Toutefois, cette guerre marque un tournant. Les Camerounais commencent à voir l'Europe différemment. Ils découvrent une Europe affaiblie, dévastée et surtout dépendante de ses colonies pour se reconstruire. C'est dans ce contexte que Ruben Oumniobe et ses camarades, à travers des syndicats comme l'Union des syndicats confédérés du Cameroun USCC, entament des revendications pacifiques pour la réunification des deux Camerouns et l'indépendance du pays. En 1945, ces mouvements de contestation prennent de l'ampleur, notamment avec la grève des cheminots de Douala, menée sous l'impulsion des leaders syndicaux comme Ruben Oumniobe. Face à ces grèves, l'administration coloniale réagit brutalement. L'armée a envoyé pour réprimer les manifestants. Des camions militaires équipés de mitrailleuses ouvrent le feu, faisant une cinquantaine de morts et une centaine de blessés. Ruben Oumniobe, bien qu'étroitement surveillé, parvient à échapper à cette répression sanglante. En 1946, un an après la fin de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, la France, désireuse de calmer les premières voix nationalistes africaines, autorise la création de partis politiques en Afrique. Rapidement, un parti devient extrêmement populaire, le Rassemblement démocratique africain RDA, un mouvement panafricain fondé en 1946 par des Africains visant à revendiquer pacifiquement et politiquement l'indépendance des colonies. Ruben Oumniobe, figure emblématique du nationalisme camerounais, participe à la création du RDA à Bamako, aux côtés de son ami Léopold Moumé Etia. Il rejoint le RDA et s'intègre à son aile radicale qui milite réellement pour une indépendance immédiate. Ruben est même élu vice-président du parti, présidé alors par Félix Houphouët-Boigny. Cependant, la rapide expansion du RDA et la diffusion du nationalisme africain qui l'inspire inquiètent l'administration coloniale française qui commence à percevoir ses dirigeants comme des menaces. Bien que puissant et influent à l'échelle continentale, le RDA reste limité dans son impact local. Cela conduit à la création de partis nationalistes à l'échelle des colonies, qui s'affilient au RDA. Ainsi, en 1948 au Cameroun, naît l'Union des populations du Cameroun, UPC. Parmi ses fondateurs figurent Léopold Moumé Etia, Jacques Ngom, Charles Assalé, Guillaume Hont, Joseph Raymond Etundi, Georges Yemi, Théodore Ngosso, Guillaume Bagal, Léonard Bouli, Emmanuel Yap, Jacques-René Bidoum, Manga Mado et Ruben Oumniobe. L'UPC acquiert rapidement une influence majeure dans le pays. Ses membres sillonnent le Cameroun pour éveiller les consciences, promouvoir l'esprit nationaliste, combattre le tribalisme et prôner la solidarité dans la lutte pour l'indépendance. Le parti organise même des grèves et devient ainsi la formation nationaliste la plus puissante des colonies francophones. Mais ce succès inquiète les colons qui répriment violemment ses membres. Face à cette répression, une nouvelle génération de leaders émerge, donnant un nouveau visage à l'UPC. Parmi eux, au sein des Afana, Abel Kingé, Félix Roland Momier, Ernest Wandier et Ruben Oumniobe, qui en devient le chef après le retrait de Léopold Moumé Etia.
L'UPC a demandé à intervenir sur 3 questions.
En 1952, Ruben Oumniobe se rend aux États-Unis pour plaider la cause camerounaise devant la 4e commission de tutelle de l'Assemblée générale de l'ONU. Il réclame la réunification immédiate des deux Camerouns et exige la fixation d'une date pour leur indépendance.
L'UPC a demandé à intervenir sur 3 questions. La réunification immédiate du Cameroun, la constitution d'un conseil de gouvernement et d'une assemblée avec des pouvoirs législatifs. Et enfin,
la fixation d'un délai pour le droit de l'indépendance au peuple camerounais. Telles sont, Monsieur le Président, les questions sur lesquelles le peuple de mon pays m'a mandaté pour venir ici. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
En 1954, 2 ans après le passage de Robben Omniobé à l'ONU, Roland Pré, alors haut commissaire français au Cameroun, prend la décision ferme d'éradiquer l'UPC. Afin de faciliter la surveillance et d'intensifier la pression judiciaire sur ses dirigeants, ces derniers sont regroupés à Douala. Abel King, vice-président de l'UPC, est poursuivi pour outrage à magistrat. Pierre Penda, membre du comité directeur, fait l'objet de 5 plaintes successives. Félix Moumier est accusé de diffamation et injure et Robben Omniobé est condamné pour dénonciation calomnieuse. Roland Pré procède également à une purge au sein de l'appareil judiciaire, renvoyant en France les magistrats jugés trop indulgents envers l'UPC. Parallèlement, les forces de l'ordre et les organisations camerounaises alliées à l'administration coloniale, notamment le Rassemblement des populations du Cameroun RPC, sont mobilisées pour empêcher les réunions et discours publics de l'UPC. La surveillance s'intensifie. Les correspondances privées des militants sont systématiquement contrôlées et leurs domiciles fréquemment perquisitionnés. Cependant, entre le 20 et le 30 mai 1955, une série d'affrontements éclate. Les militants de l'UPC, organisés en groupe, affrontent leurs adversaires politiques locaux soutenus par l'administration coloniale française ainsi que par les forces de l'ordre. Ces événements marquent l'irruption de la violence dans la vie politique camerounaise et marquent le début de la guerre du Cameroun, un conflit qui durera près de 16 ans et fera plus de 200 000 morts. Le 13 juillet 1955, un décret colonial dissout officiellement mais injustement l'UPC. De nombreux militants sont arrêtés et d'autres sont assassinés. Contraint à la clandestinité, le parti finit par opter pour la lutte armée. Sous la supervision de Pierre Mesmer, le nouveau haut commissaire au Cameroun, une répression massive s'abat sur les membres de l'UPC. Traumatisé par la défaite française en Indochine, Mesmer semble animé par un seul objectif: exterminer tous les membres de l'UPC. Courte annonce. Vous êtes en Afrique et souhaitez poursuivre vos études en Allemagne? Je vous présente Lösung to Germany. Il simplifie énormément votre voyage. Il vous aide à trouver un logement adapté à vos besoins, à créer un compte bancaire allemand pour votre dépôt de caution, à obtenir une préinscription dans une université allemande, à rechercher un garant pour votre prise en charge, si nécessaire, à vous préparer pour l'interview à l'ambassade et à répondre à toutes vos questions concernant la procédure. À partir des contacts qui s'affichent à l'écran, contactez Lösung to Germany pour simplifier votre procédure.
Nous avions tous, surtout ceux qui avaient été en Indochine, réfléchi au dispositif et nous en savions beaucoup.
Mesmer appelle en renfort les troupes des colonies voisines. Le territoire est quadrillé. C'est le début de la guerre sur les 2 fronts, militaire et psychologique. Constitution de milices locales, propagande. Tout individu trouvé en dehors des camps est considéré comme rebelle et abattu sur le champ.
On rassemble les petits villages en gros villages que l'on peut contrôler. Et deuxièmement, on fait circuler de petites patrouilles pour courir après les petits groupes d'Omniobé. Omniobé faisait régner la terreur. Et à partir de ce moment-là, j'ai décidé de lui faire la guerre et de l'éliminer.
À partir de ce moment-là?
Oui.
L'armée française mène alors de véritables opérations de guerre dans les régions Bassa et Bamileke. Des milliers de Camerounais sont rassemblés de force, mitraillés et bombardés depuis des hélicoptères. Les nationalistes et de milliers d'innocents subissent également des bombardements au napalm sur leur zone de repli.
C'est pas seulement des rumeurs. Le napalm a été utilisé au Cameroun. Le napalm a été utilisé au Cameroun, même s'il y a certains démentis pour la forme. Monsieur Mesmer ne pourra pas faire un démenti sérieux à ce sujet.
Donc vous avez entendu parler de napalm?
Oui, c'est pas important.
Après les massacres, les têtes des combattants indépendantistes tués sont coupées et exposées dans les villages et camps de regroupement pour intimider les populations. Face à une telle violence, l'UPC résiste tant bien que mal. Armés de simples machettes, gourdins, arcs et flèches, les combattants se regroupent en petites unités de 50 à 200 hommes pour tenter de tenir tête à l'armée coloniale.
Comme les militaires menaçaient trop, nous avions organisé un camp pour garder la population. Les militaires ont surpris cette population-là et avec l'armée française, ils ont ouvert le feu. Ils ont décimé cette population et il y avait un seul survivant.
Pour empêcher la propagation du mouvement de contestation, les populations Bassa et Bamileke vivant en ville sont déportées vers des camps situés le long des principaux axes routiers. Le général Lamberton, responsable des forces françaises, ordonne la destruction systématique de toutes les habitations situées en dehors des zones de regroupement, ainsi que le saccage des cultures environnantes. Les déportés sont ensuite soumis aux travaux forcés, notamment au profit de la société française Razel, spécialisée aujourd'hui dans la construction de routes en Afrique. Le regroupement des populations dans des zones spécifiques permet à l'administration coloniale de créer ailleurs des zones interdites. Toute présence humaine dans ces zones est strictement interdite et les personnes qui y sont découvertes sont immédiatement considérées comme des nationalistes et sont exécutées. Ces zones sont totalement privées de ressources. Les cultures y sont systématiquement détruites, les points d'eau contaminés et le bétail abattu. Au fil des mois, les troupes françaises, composées de soldats camerounais, de recrues issus des colonies africaines et de quelques officiers français notoirement racistes, accentuent leur pression. Elles prennent rapidement l'avantage. Isolées des populations qui sont désormais sous surveillance stricte, les nationalistes se retrouvent dans une précarité extrême. Ils souffrent de la faim en raison de la destruction des champs et des sources d'eau et manquent cruellement de médicaments, de vêtements et d'équipements. Le recrutement devient également de plus en plus difficile et certains combattants commencent même à mourir de faim. En 1958, Amadou Ahidjo, récemment nommé Premier ministre par la France, entre en contact avec Robert Omniobé par l'intermédiaire de l'archevêque de Douala, Thomas Mongo. Cependant, Omniobé reste ferme et déclare que la seule condition pour mettre fin à la révolte est la réunification des deux Cameroun et l'indépendance totale du pays. Cette réponse irrite profondément Ahidjo et ses maîtres français. La même année à Bachenga, Amadou Ahidjo organise une réunion avec Moussa Yaya Sakifada et Charles Okala. Ensemble, avec l'aval des autorités françaises, ils décident de procéder à l'élimination physique de Robert Omniobé, comptant bien sûr sur le soutien infaillible de l'armée française. Après de longs mois de traque, marqués par l'arrestation ou l'exécution des partisans d'Omniobé, l'armée française parvient finalement à le localiser grâce à la trahison d'un compatriote camerounais. Le 13 septembre 1958, alors qu'il tente de traverser un tronc d'arbre pour échapper aux soldats français, Robert Omniobé est abattu froidement de 3 balles dans le dos. Il s'éteint à l'âge de 45 ans. Son cadavre est ensuite traîné dans la boue sur une distance d'une dizaine de kilomètres dans une ultime démonstration d'humiliation.
Il a été abattu de dos, il a été tué lui sur le coup. Il n'y a eu ni sommation ni volonté de l'arrêter vivant. Il faut préciser qu'il n'était pas armé. Personne dans ce groupe n'était armé. Personne dans le maquis de Oum n'était armé. Ils l'ont traîné après sur plusieurs kilomètres jusqu'au village d'abord de Boumiébel, où ils ont exposé le corps. Donc c'était de l'action psychologique. Le fait de le traîner, de traîner son corps par terre, dans la boue, de le défigurer, de l'humilier, en fait d'humilier même le cadavre, puisque comme il n'avait pas pu l'humilier de son vivant, il fallait humilier le cadavre et d'aller ensuite l'exposer au village.
Après l'assassinat de Robin Omniobé, un événement qui réjouit à la fois Amadou Ahidjo et les autorités françaises, Paris impose à Ahidjo la signature de nombreux accords de coopération. Une fois ces accords ratifiés, le général de Gaulle décide de donner une pseudo-indépendance pour le Cameroun. Ainsi, le 1er janvier 1960, Amadou Ahidjo annonce l'indépendance du pays, une indépendance qu'il n'a pourtant jamais réclamée.
Camerounais des villes, des villages et des campagnes, nos cœurs battent aujourd'hui ensemble d'un même rythme. Notre drapeau national flotte partout au vent de notre joie. Vive la liberté, vive le Cameroun indépendant.
Après cette proclamation, les dirigeants de l'UPC en exil dénoncent ce qu'ils considèrent comme une indépendance de façade. Pour eux, Amadou Ahidjo reste un serviteur des intérêts coloniaux français. Face à cette situation, les militants survivants de l'UPC encore présents au Cameroun lancent des insurrections. Avec le soutien des conseillers militaires français toujours sur place, Ahidjo réprime ces révoltes avec une extrême brutalité. Le 5 mai 1960, après avoir remporté les élections présidentielles, Amadou Ahidjo devient officiellement le premier président de la République du Cameroun. Une fois au pouvoir, il refuse catégoriquement les propositions de négociation faites par Félix Roland Moumié, le nouveau leader de l'UPC, pour mettre fin aux affrontements. Avec l'aide de Jacques Faucard, les dirigeants de l'UPC encore actifs à l'étranger sont éliminés un à un. Parmi eux, le docteur Félix Roland Moumié, empoisonné en novembre 60 à Genève par les services secrets français. Il meurt à l'âge de 35 ans. En 1966, 6 ans après l'assassinat de Félix Roland Moumié, Amadou Ahidjo officialise le monopartisme au Cameroun en instaurant l'Union nationale camerounaise comme parti unique. Cependant, cette même année, il est confronté à une nouvelle menace, le retour de Sendé Afana, un économiste et nationaliste, figure influente de l'UPC. Sendé Afana organise des insurrections dans la région de Melundu, exigeant une véritable indépendance pour le Cameroun, le retrait des bases militaires françaises, l'annulation des accords de coopération et la tenue d'élections présidentielles transparentes. Devenu gênant pour le régime, Sendé Afana est traqué par les forces armées camerounaises, accompagné de militaires français. Le 5 mars 1966, il est localisé et encerclé dans une forêt. Bien qu'il parvienne à s'échapper, il perd ses lunettes et ses sandales, ce qui compromet sa mobilité. Le 15 mars 1966, il est de nouveau pris en embuscade par une unité de l'armée camerounaise. Presque aveugle sans ses lunettes, Sendé Afana ne parvient pas à fuir comme ses compagnons. Capturé, il est exécuté et décapité. Sa tête est transportée par hélicoptère à Yaoundé afin que le président puisse regarder le mort dans les yeux. À l'exception d'Ernest Ouandjé, caché dans la forêt et traqué par l'armée camerounaise, plus personne n'ose contester l'autorité du président Amadou Ahidjo et du système France-Afrique imposé par la France au Cameroun. En 1970, unique candidat, Amadou Ahidjo est réélu avec 100% des voix. Dès le début de ce nouveau mandat, Ahidjo décide d'en finir définitivement avec les résistants de l'UPC. Le 19 août 1970, Ernest Ouandjé est arrêté dans le département du Mungo, précisément dans la localité de Mbanga. Il est transporté par hélicoptère jusqu'aux locaux de la tristement célèbre brigade mixte mobile de Konengi à Yaoundé. Ce lieu, connu pour ses salles de torture, est dirigé par le sinistre Jean Fauchivé, un homme de main du régime qui n'a de compte à rendre qu'au président de la République. En novembre 1970, les ambassades camerounaises à Paris et à Londres refusent des visas aux avocats étrangers souhaitant défendre Ouandjé et Monseigneur Ndokmo. Au Cameroun, Ouandjé rejette l'avocat commis d'office par l'État. Face au tribunal, il déclare « Il m'est impossible d'être jugé équitablement. Le gouvernement veut m'éliminer et ce procès est une mascarade. » Interrogé sur les faits qui lui sont reprochés, Ouandjé refuse de s'exprimer, qualifiant le procès de simple formalité visant à justifier son exécution. Peu avant Noël, Monseigneur Ndokmo demande la grâce présidentielle, Mais Wandier refuse catégoriquement de signer un recours. Lorsqu'on lui présente le dossier à plusieurs reprises, il répond un jour à Ahidjo, « Prenez vos responsabilités, moi je prends les miennes devant l'histoire. » Le 5 janvier 1971, Ernest Wandier est condamné à mort avec 2 de ses camarades, Raphaël Fauting et Gabriel Tabeu. Le 11 janvier, Jacques Faucard atterrit au Cameroun et informe Ahidjo que la situation de Wandier doit être résolue avant la visite imminente du président français Georges Pompidou. Faucard conclut « Je pars à Libreville en attendant que cette affaire soit réglée. » Le 15 janvier 1971, la sentence est exécutée. Sur une place publique à Bafoussam, devant une foule rassemblée, Ernest Wandier, Raphaël Fauting et Gabriel Tabeu sont exécutés. La mort de Wandier marque la fin des oppositions sérieuses au régime néocolonial d'Ahidjo et scelle la disparition de l'UPC véritable.
Le régime d'Ahidjo était un régime d'une répression barbare et vraiment sanglante dans tout le Cameroun, pas seulement sur le plan de l'armée. Et ça s'étendait même dans des zones où il n'y avait pas de guerre. On arrêtait les gens, on les enfermait, on les tuait des façons les plus barbares.
Le nombre exact de victimes de cette guerre reste sujet à débat. Une chose est cependant certaine. Ce conflit, mené par la France contre des hommes qui ne réclamaient que l'indépendance de leur pays, a fait au moins 200 000 morts.
Les hommes, ils devaient les achever, et les femmes, ils les achevaient pas. Ils les laissaient mourir comme ça.
Max Bardet était accompagné d'un officier de l'armée française.
Attendez, ce que voulait voir cet officier qui était avec moi, c'était qu'il n'y ait surtout pas de comment dirais-je, de gens qui puissent aller raconter ça et qu'on puisse impliquer justement, comme il y avait encore quelques militaires français, qu'on puisse impliquer la France dans ces affaires-là. Moi, je serais à leur place, j'en voudrais, je serais Moune et j'en voudrais aux Français. Enfin, j'en voudrais aux Français.
La guerre du Cameroun, bien qu'étouffée par la France et ses alliés, demeure un chapitre douloureux et significatif de l'histoire africaine. Elle illustre les sacrifices immenses consentis par ceux qui rêvaient d'indépendance et d'un avenir meilleur pour leur nation. Elle nous rappelle également la complexité des luttes post-coloniales, où les aspirations locales se heurtaient aux intérêts des grandes puissances. Aujourd'hui encore, le Cameroun porte les stigmates de ce conflit. Que cette histoire serve de leçon pour les générations actuelles et futures. La quête de liberté est un chemin ardu, mais elle reste une aspiration noble et universelle. Merci d'avoir suivi cette narration. Si cette histoire vous a intéressé, n'hésitez pas à partager vos réflexions en commentaire et à vous abonner pour des...
Stand with Ambazonia. Empower ABC Amba TV. We are calling on Ambazonians around the world.